Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
So the new way of tabulating winners and losers continues. Greetings, my friends. Great to have you. Rush Limbaugh, the EIV Network, the Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies, Advanced Anti-Media Studies, and Anti-Leftist Studies. Happy to have you here. So all five Donald Trump-endorsed candidates won yesterday. That means that the Democrats are going to take the House. That means the Democrats are going to take the House in November. It's even more a lock now than it was before the Democrats all lost these elections yesterday. And that's from no less than F. Chuck Todd. These results yesterday show that the Democrats are on the way to a big sweep, a gigantic blue wave in November. They're trying to say that Trump's endorsement didn't help any of these candidates. They're trying to say that the massive Democrat turnout in these districts that predominantly dominated by Republicans shows that the enthusiasm is all on the Democrat side. And the fact that these races were relatively close in special elections and primary elections in the vacation month of August means that when things return to normal into the fall, school starts and family life cycles resume their normalcy, that once we get to November, the Democrats are just going to sweep everything. Isn't it amazing how when the Democrats lose in these special elections, 8 out of 9, by the way, for Trump, 8 out of 9 Trump-endorsed candidates in special or primary elections have emerged victorious. And yet, in practically every one of them, the Democrats are reported to have won, at least if not a real victory, a moral victory. It's they still can't believe it. Do not fall for this for a second. I'm telling you, behind closed doors, in the privacy of the green room restrooms at CNN and MSNBC, they are livid they didn't win Ohio. They're not telling each other, slapping each other on the back, talking about their moral victories. They are livid they didn't win it. They had everything planned. It was going to go big. Trump was going to get shellacked. These Republicans were going to lose by major margins. And instead, in fact, what are they going to do? The so-called new face, the star of the Democrat Party, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, every one of her candidates lost. Every one of them. And she went on a barnstorming tour all over the country. She was endorsing Muslims here and minorities over there. Every one of her candidates lost. We also have some very funny and interesting audio sound bites from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez coming up. She has been asked repeatedly how's she going to pay for this massive socialist agenda that's supposedly going to create wealth like we've never seen it. And she cannot answer. She has no idea what she's talking about. She literally doesn't know anything. And it's, again, noteworthy because this woman has an economics degree from Boston University. Our buddies at Campus Reform, they went to Columbia University. Do you hear about this? They went to Columbia University, and I can't remember which, and they took some average, ordinary college students off the street and said, can you name the 5 freedoms designated in the First Amendment? And nobody could. They didn't find a single student who could name anything more than freedom of speech, and some of them couldn't even name that. And these are Columbia. Yeah, it's near where a bunch of, well, never mind where it is. It's stunning the way people are not being educated today, and it's on display each and every day in our elections, in our country, in the drive-by media. So let's go through this now. In Ohio 12, the margin of victory here is 1%. That's practical. There's going to be a recount there. And as I mentioned yesterday, this election is going to be rerun in November. The same two people are going to, and no matter who had won yesterday, this is simply an election to fill out the remaining months, 3 months here of a term of a retiring Republican. And this is a suburban Columbus, Ohio district. So people are trying to figure out, okay, we had this turnout here, the massive Democrat turnout in a predominantly Republican district. The thing that people are not talking about, and this is a key to me. I've been harping on this for the past couple of days. This guy, O'Connor, the Democrat who ran in Ohio 13, really didn't run on the Democrat agenda. None of these candidates are. They're either running on Trump hatred or they're trying to sound like Republican or conservative light. This Connor Lamb guy, the special election where that was in Georgia, the same thing. They're not running on Democrat agenda items. And I don't mean the new socialism of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. They're not running on an Obama-type agenda. They are running on Trump hatred. This guy in Ohio 12 was out there trying to scare seasoned citizens that the Republicans are going to take away Social Security and Medicare and so forth, which, I mean, that's a throwback. That is a huge throwback. That was a Democrat Party staple all the way up through the 1990s. And I think even maybe the first, George W. 2004 and George W. Bush, it could have been a big issue. But the margin of victory is about 1%, probably going to be a recount. Look at the money that was spent on just an election for 3 months. And it's going to be respent, don't know how much, but they're going to have to plow some more money into it for a rerun of this same election in November. Now, one of the tricks that the drive-bys are playing on this turnout business, they are comparing turnout in the presidential race in 2016 to turnout in a special election in August, 2 years later. And they're trying to say that the vast difference in turnout is a sign that all enthusiasm for Trump has evaporated. In the district, Ohio 12, in 2016, there were, I forget the exact total, 400,000 votes versus less than half that yesterday. And they're trying to say, and I may be off on the numbers, but the percentages are not wrong. They're trying to say that, see, all the enthusiasm's on the Democrat side. The Trump side didn't even bother to show up. They don't care nearly. You can't do that. We learned that in 2010. Or actually, it was 2012. Remember, a lot of people were taking and I made this mistake myself. You take the 2010 midterm turnout where the Republicans picked up 63 seats and won the House back. And we were looking at the enthusiasm of that and saying, these pollsters that have Obama up by 5 or 6 in 2012 are missing this turnout in 2010. And they said you can't compare them. You can't compare a midterm election to a presidential year. You can't compare it in any way, particularly voter enthusiasm or turnout. And it turned out they were right. That big wave in 2010, 63 Republican victories, take control of the House, you would think that momentum, I mean, if anti-Obama in 2012 and the anti-Obama sentiment had not evaporated, what happened was in 2012, a presidential year, a bunch of people who didn't vote in 2010 because Obama wasn't on the ballot showed up in 2012 and did. And so I was looking at the polling data in 2012 showing Obama up by 5 or 6. It doesn't make any sense. They're not factoring what happened with the turnout in 2010. They said can't compare them. But they are comparing this. See, this is the trick they play. They're taking turnout in a presidential year until all the people showed up and voted for Trump and comparing it to all the people that did not show up and vote yesterday in Ohio 12 on the Republican side. And trying to tell you that every bit of enthusiasm for Trump has vanished, even though Trump wasn't on the ballot. They're also trying to say that Trump had no impact on any of these races in Kansas with Chris Kobach or in Ohio with Troy Bolderson. No. Trump didn't do anything. And, of course, Kasich's out there saying Trump hurt. But yet the Republicans win 5 out of 5 yesterday. And the big news for a lot of people, I'm going to put myself in this list, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her massively new, supposedly taking the country by storm socialist movement just fizzled. I mean, it just plopped. Now, the Democrats don't make the mistake of assuming that she's taking a Democrat Party with them, because remember, there were a lot of old line mainstream. Remember Pelosi after Joe Crowley lost? And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is the big winner, and there's all this excitement, and people are running around calling her the drive-by. She's the new face of the Democrat Party. And Pelosi, in the Wicked Witch of the West green room where she lives, it's just one race. It's just one little district. It doesn't mean anything. Don't overanalyze this. Don't read anything into this that isn't there. So these old-line Democrats didn't want any part of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez becoming the new face of the Democrat Party, but her crowd wants her to be. And she was. She traveled to Michigan. She traveled to Hollywood. She traveled, and everywhere she went, her endorsed candidates, I mean, just blown to smithereens. Let me get a brief timeout. I want to come back, get started on some sound bites, some individual election data on this, and discuss what it means, if anything, and how to extrapolate, if we can, what happened yesterday to the upcoming midterms in November. So hang on. We'll be back and continue right after this. Hi, welcome back. Great to have you. Rush Limbaugh, the EIB Network. Old buddy Seton Motley has an observation I think may be true. One of the biggest obstacles we have in Ohio is that the Republican base needs to overcome all those years of John Kasich beleaguering everybody. I like this contrarian view of things. Greetings, welcome back, Rush Limbaugh. I have the audio sound bites here of the campus reform interviews of college students. One was at Columbia University. I think both of these are at Columbia. Cabot Phillips is the. Oh, by the way, did you see that Elizabeth Heng's 4-minute ad? We aired it earlier this week. Facebook has lifted the ban. Pressure was applied, and Facebook has lifted the ban, and her ad, they pulled the ad saying it was too much hate because it accurately described the genocide of the Pol Pot regime in Cambodia. Anyway, here's Cabot Phillips. This was Monday morning on the Campus Reform website, asking students at Columbia about the First Amendment.
Can you name the 5 freedoms protected under the First Amendment?
No, I definitely can't. I don't know.
I can't. Any?
Maybe we can guess. So freedom of speech, freedom of the press.
Yep. You're the constitutional lawyer here, man. You got this. Come on.
You gotta do it.
Yeah, dude, he's sitting in class in law school right now also. So, dude, no pressure.
Taking that class in law school. That must mean somebody's taking a constitutional law class, but you're supposed to learn what's in the First Amendment long before you get to college. And this is no slouch college. This is Columbia. Here's the second bite.
I think the line starts drawing when you get offensive trying to in people's culture.
I don't think
wait a
that
minute.
it's fair.
Wait. Got it back to. He asked a different question on this. If I don't tell you what the question is, you're not going to know what they're answering. Question: where do you think the line is on when something should no longer be protected by the First Amendment?
I think the line starts drawing when you get offensive trying to in people's culture.
I don't think that it's fair for people to use the First Amendment as kind of an excuse to say whatever they want. I don't have the right to hurt people.
You do, though.
Yeah, I guess. This is all very tricky.
It's not tricky. There's nothing. This is one of the most easy to understand things in all of the Constitution. But did you hear? I don't think that it's fair for people to use the First Amendment as kind of like, an excuse to say whatever they want. Like, I don't have the right to hurt people. But you do. You have the right to offend them. You see, the thing is, nobody has to listen to you. You know how many people confuse that with the First Amendment? They think the right to free speech means that people have to listen to you. And they don't. You have to earn that. I think like the lines are strong when you go and get offensive, trying to end people's culture. What the hell? You know what that comes? That comes direct from the multicultural curricula that this student has been subjected to probably since middle school. What in the world does the First Amendment, freedom of speech, have to do with culture? Well, I think the lines are strong when you get offensive, like trying to end people's culture. Who's ending people's culture? Except ours. Our culture is what's under assault. And this babe's not even in favor of free speech to defend it. I made a mistake also. Folks, I'm a little hoarse today. And when I get hoarse, I get distracted. I get distracted by it. And that means that sometimes I don't focus like a laser on what I'm saying because it becomes a chore to say it. And I goofed up and I said that Connor Lamb was in Georgia. I was confusing him with one of the early special elections. Connor Lamb was in Pennsylvania. The point that I was making is that in all of these special elections, and it's very, very important, these Democrats are not running on anything like the socialist agenda that they're pushing all over the media. In Ohio 12, this guy O'Connor, for the most part, didn't even attack Trump. Now, go figure that. Now, the reason for that is this is a very heavy Republican district, and Trump won it going away 2 years ago. It also has its share of seasoned citizens. So O'Connor does not attack Trump, which is all that's going to happen in the midterms. Once the midterms get here, that's what it's all going to be about. The Democrats are going to be attacking Trump left and right. They're not going to be running on their agenda. They are not going to be running on their issues. Now, you might think that's crazy because even I have pointed out that in recent months they have gotten very confident that they're taking the masks off. They're not trying to hide who they are and what they think. But when you get to elections, when you get down to actually campaigning for votes, they still are, or they still will, depending on where. And they really, folks, they really thought they were going to win Ohio 12. You could tell yesterday that that was the race that mattered, and the drive-bys will give you the tip-off if you just study what their laser light focused on. And it was this one, Ohio 12. And they really thought this was going to be a flat-out, straight-out win. And they put a lot of money into this race, and they spent a lot of money getting out the vote. Some people I heard earlier today, 90% Democrat turnout. I haven't validated that. I haven't confirmed it, but it's floating around out there. And I think of 90% turnout, they should have won in a landslide, where the Republican turnout was barely 50%. But it was explained to me, well, the district is so heavily Republican. And see, that's why the drive-bys are claiming their moral victory. But again, you can't compare turnouts from a presidential year to not even a midterm. This is a special election in August. The number of people out of town or not paying attention. And this is where the drive-bys are going to be making a mistake in misassuming their strength. People want to weigh in on this immediately, and since I'm a little hoarse, and my voice may get stronger as the afternoon goes on, somebody might bring in some chocolate cake donuts, you never know. Let's start on the phones. Freedom, New Jersey. Mark, you're first, and welcome. Great to have you here.
Hello, Mr. Limbaugh. Nice to talk to you, sir. Thank you for taking my call.
You bet.
The reason I called today is I'm hoping to be the 1.4%. Where you might be wrong. You're like, 98.6% right?
No, it's 99.8. But
well, then I've only got 0.2 of a percentage to be right, but I think I am. Rush, I believe it's us that are being complacent. I do believe it's the Republicans and the Trumpsters that are being complacent. I think we're out here fat and happy, excited that our agenda is getting pushed through, even though some pieces of it are slower than others. I agree with you that Trump's coattails definitely won with a 5-0 record. Fantastic.
Well, now, wait a minute on that. Hang on, how come I'm not getting it? I spent 45 minutes yesterday opening this program telling everybody how important it was to go up and vote in these elections. You know, Trump goes out there, does a rally Saturday, but I did it yesterday. And how come nobody's talking about that? Huh?
I heard you yesterday, Rush. I'm all for it. I'm just saying
Just
to you,
kidding, folks.
For 30 seconds of your valuable broadcast time, I want to talk to your listeners and say, folks, we got to get off the couch. We can't be complacent. We can't think that it's going to go well just because Trump's out there rallying the base. We have to knock on the doors. We have to get energized. We have to be the grassroots to stop a blue wave. I don't believe there's going to be a blue wave because I believe that we're going to turn out in November like we did 2 years ago. But we have to get motivated. We cannot let them impeach and stop the agenda of President Trump. We can't let them.
Let me ask you a couple. Let me ask you a couple questions here, okay? Because I did not say. I mean, you think you're calling in to correct me? I did. What did I say that made you think I don't understand what's going on, or that I may have it wrong?
+7 is that district, even in non-presidential year. We're +7 Republican in Ohio 12. We spent $5 million to their $1 million, and we win by 1 percentage point. I do believe that the enthusiasm was on their side. Had the Democrat not made a huge gaffe on MSNBC, maybe we can thank them for this. Had he not made a huge gaffe and finally admitted that, yes, he would vote for Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House just 1 week before the election date, he might have pulled this thing out. And that would have only been because
Wait a minute.
we weren't motivated.
Wait a minute. I really want to I do not want you to misunderstand my tone. I'm not being contentious. I'm not trying to be argumentative. I really want to talk to you about that. Don't misunderstand this tone. Do you really think that this Democrat saying on MSNBC would vote for Pelosi had an impact on the vote and the turnout yesterday? And if so, walk me through it.
Well, I believe, Rush, that what happened was when he had been being a wolf in sheep's clothing, similar to the Georgia candidate, where they were running away from the Democrat Party, so to speak, not talking about, he wouldn't vote for Nancy. He would, he's independent. He was going to think about Ohio 12 and to heck with the National Democratic Party. He was talking, he was bringing up all the old school playbooks of the Democrats, but he was avoiding going after Trump by name. He was avoiding all the things that you've mentioned.
Right,
sir.
but I want to know, pretend that you're a guy that wants to vote for this guy, okay? You're in Ohio 12, and all of a sudden you see him on MSNBC, and he's going to vote for Pelosi. What do? You
either stay home or you say, aha, he wasn't really the moderate Democrat.
Why do the Democrats... This is what I don't disagree with you on the GOP being +7. The turnout was light. But why... Here, let me companion question. Why do you think that Republicans are sitting there fat, dumb, and happy and do not realize what's at stake? Why do you think they don't realize they have to get out and vote to protect Trump?
I believe that even the numbers that you've quoted, Rush, about the generic ballot numbers, the sheer amount, the sheer volume of seats that we have to defend, 84 to 13. And a lot of those were in districts that Hillary either won or came close to winning. So we have more to defend right off the bat. And then the tradition that you talked about yesterday of the party in power losing an average of 15 seats. See, I listened to you yesterday, and I'm using all these numbers, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, we've got a lot to defend, and we spent $5 million. We can't spend $5 million on every local race in every district.
Why not? The Democrats want to spend $32 trillion on Medicare for all.
We don't want Democrat policies. That's why we have to, we have to fight and we have to stand up and say, not to throw a total curveball here, Rush, but, it's not just this. It's the protests in the street, even though I think they backfire to a large extent. But it's the same thing that you've talked about for as long as you've been on the air, 20-some years, is that when it's repeated and beaten into our head over and over and over and over and over by the mainstream media that, Trump's in trouble, the Republicans in trouble, blue wave, blue wave, blue wave. I believe that psyche gets into the Republicans' heads, not us Trumpsters. It's not going to change us Trumpsters, but those that might be marginal or sitting on the fence, I think are affected by it.
Okay, then let me try something here with you, because you're hitting all my buttons about you're giving me not cliches, but you're giving me the boilerplate default inside the Beltway logic and reasons for voter turnout in midterms and specials and presidentials. And all of it relies on the belief that voters of the party in power become stupid 2 years after their candidate wins the presidency, and they don't realize they have to continue to vote to keep their guy with a majority. And I have trouble believing that these are the thought processes that voters go through. So it seems to me that with what you're saying, Trump has a challenge. He's got a behavioral challenge. He has to keep his base revved up. But at the same time, he's got to go out and attract some independents and moderates who are not by any means make America great people, may not like Democrats, but he's going to need them to be voting Republican. And whatever he does, he cannot turn them off. He cannot frustrate them, make them mad. So he's got to find a way every day to behave in ways that please and satisfy his base, while at the same time appearing presidential and sophisticated and serious to the moderates and the independents that Republicans need to win in November, correct?
I'm going to go back to what you said. The moderates and independents blow in the wind. What he has to do is keep his base revved up and continue to perform the things that he promised that he was going to accomplish. And I think he really needs to make some more moves on the border wall and border security. Keep his base revved up, keep true to his word, and we will help him get over the finish line. If the moderates and independents want to come along for the great economy, they're more than welcome to join us, but I wouldn't change a thing if I were Donald Trump.
You wouldn't?
No.
Well, how does that jive with the first 80% of your call?
Well, sir, all I was saying was for the Republican base, for all of us to go out there, knock on doors, make the phone calls, organize, do the things that the Democrats are doing at the grassroots level. I haven't seen near as much action even here locally. Of course, I'm in New Jersey, and we don't really have anything going except the Senate race, and I'm involved in that. But it's our local race is nothing to be concerned about. But we have to get out.
You got a governor that's gotten out of town so fast when he figured out he didn't know how to do the job. But, I mean, that's a pretty good point. I mean, you're sitting there in New Jersey, which is so blue that it's practically, I mean, there's no red in the state, and you're worried you're not seeing any enthusiasm. Of course you're not going to see the enthusiasm. It's New Jersey. You can count the number of Republicans in that state probably in one county. Anyway, look, I appreciate the call. I'm going to take a break here because of the constraints of the programming format. Back in just a second. Well, you know, I thought by now that I'd be having a little fun, bouncing off of sound bites. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Instead, I find myself in the middle of a full-fledged panic. So let's just stick with the phones. People want to talk about this. And I do have questions. And I want to stress again, for those of you that are coming up, do not misunderstand my tone. I know when somebody says, do you really believe? It sounds like you're being called stupid. I don't mean to do that. I'm just expressing my incredulity I have the utmost respect for all of you and your intelligence. You wouldn't be listening here in the first place. Up next is Vincent, Grand Rapids, Michigan. Great to have you, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Rush. Thank you. First of all, I'm going to get right to my point, but I do want to just say to you that election night, just before of 2016, you were the only program that had not given up hope on Trump. It seemed like you were the only person anywhere who still had faith he might win. And that was great. Now,
thank you, sir.
To my point, what do we do as Republicans to incite somewhat of a riot, if you will, at the polling booths? And I don't mean a riot, obviously. What I mean is
well, I know what you mean.
To get the people in. I'm looking at the numbers of the votes and everything. The Democrats versus Republicans, and the Democrats are coming out in number. Now, I agree with what you say. This time of year, it's kind of a toss-up. But I do know. I've been around long.
Let's stick with one thing at a time here. Okay. You put two things on the table. A, we need to somehow light a fire under Republicans to get them to realize how important it is to turn out. I'm sitting here saying, if they don't know, then it's over. How in the world how do they not know? They can see what's going on every day. They can see what's being done to the guy they voted for. How can anybody not know what's at stake? This boggles my mind. But the second thing is, you cite turnout numbers, and I've seen this too. I've seen it in a couple places that the Democrat turnout was 90%. Drive-bys to say, wow, look at that enthusiasm. You never see 90%. Then over here they say the Republican turnout was 40%, maybe 50%, and yet in every race, the Republicans have won. Does anybody really believe that 90% of Democrats turned out? No. I mean, come on. So why aren't they winning in landslide? Do you realize what 90% turnout? That doesn't happen in presidential years. 90% turnout would equal landslide no matter what. Especially if the Republicans are only 40 to 50. I don't care how many more Republicans there are. And in each of these districts, they were not all so Republican heavy that despite a 90% Democrat turnout, the Republicans still win. What is this?
No, I agree. But this is the only thing that concerns me, and that is I've been around long enough voting that I realize when we have power, when we are in power, I should say, that we get complacent.
That's because our candidates disappoint us. That's not happening this time.
I could not agree with you more.
Except, wait a minute. Maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe individual Republican members of Congress are disappointing voters, particularly those who are not really pedal to the metal supporting Trump, do what he wants to. That could be a factor. Have to admit that.
Yeah, I hope that's not the case, but yeah, that to me is the biggest concern: is how complacent have we become? And
I don't think complacency. Right. This is where I separate from the field here. I don't think we're talking about complacency. But remember, we have this statistic that has been borne out. It's a stat that has been created by actual fact and history. And that is the party that wins the presidency loses 15 seats on average in the House in the next election 2 years later. That's just the way it's. There are exceptions. Like in 2002, the Republicans won the White House in 2000 and gained seats in 2002 because the Democrats scared the hell out of everybody at the Wellstone Memorial. Now, why aren't the Democrats scaring the hell out of everybody every day? Now, the Wellstone Memorial happened one night. The Democrat Party ought to be scaring anybody with an IQ over 90 every day. Some of this stuff, what the Democrats are offering, what they're promoting, this madcap, stupid socialism, trying to make a star out of these people, the anger, the hate. I mean, the raw hatred that this party has become known for and happily makes it known each and every day. What in the world is attractive about that? They want us to believe that this country is united in its disgust for Trump. And I just don't see that. But that's what they want everybody to believe. And so we're being asked to believe a bunch of SOP, standard operating procedure things, that are axiomatic inside the Beltway. But I don't think it's lack of enthusiasm. I just can't believe that people that voted 2 years ago have not see the danger that what they voted for is at risk every day. So if there is a complacency, it isn't complacency. If there's an active decision not to vote, then that's what has to be figured out. Now, I look, and some people are going to be complacent. Look, I know that not one description can apply to everybody in a group of millions of people, but I don't think complacency is the primary reason why they're predicting a blue wave in the media. But look, I appreciate the call out there, Vincent, very much. Again, brief timeout. Back with more in a moment. Look, I've got a little bit of a different theory about all this, but if you want, I mean, I will join the chorus. I'll start the woe is me chorus. I'll start leading it if you want, folks. You just got to let me know. You want me talking here about how, man, it's looking bleak and all these elections that they're winning. Oh, don't get the wrong idea. This means it's over. If that's what you want me to do, let me know via the email. Now, folks, you remember that it was Walter Shapiro at thehill.com who kind of let the cat out of the bag. He said on Monday, and he represents the thinking of a lot of drive-bys, that Trump wants to lose the midterms. Remember? So that it sets him up to win 2020. If Trump loses the midterms, the Republicans lose the House, then Trump, the theory goes, will be able to blame Pelosi and Schumer and the Democrats for his agenda being short-stopped and thwarted and not implemented. The theory is that Trump would much rather run for re-election having to blame Democrats for standing in his way than Republicans. So the theory is that Trump wants to lose the midterms. Well, the theory kind of got blown to smithereens yesterday then, didn't it? Welcome back. Great to have you. 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. Let me tell you a theory I have about this turnout business and the enthusiasm. And I think many people are making a mistake. Now, this is just me, but I actually think that all of this Democrat enthusiasm and whatever is the reason for it, Trump hatred, frustration at having lost in 2016, frustration at continuing to lose all of these special elections. Trump is 8 out of 9 on these things since he took office. Trump's agenda being implemented. I fully understand Democrat resistance anger. And I fully understand when people say that they may be loaded for bear, that they are motivated, they are enthusiastic. But I believe they will never be more motivated than they are during these special elections. I don't think that this difference in enthusiasm and motivation is going to be nearly as big when we get to November, which are normal, regularly scheduled elections. I think that we may be seeing the maximum resistance motivation and energy precisely for these specials, because the special elections like in Ohio 12 or even some of these primaries provide an immediate opportunity for elixir for these Democrats. And I think that they think their chances at winning these things are better than other elections. So I think they do go all in. And I do think they may turn out in above average numbers. But I don't believe that this level of enthusiasm is going to hold in November. And I certainly don't think it's going to be built upon. I think there's something unique about the set of circumstances here on the Democrat side leading to all this so-called enthusiasm and motivation and energy. And remember, with every loss, they're going to lose some. It's not just the Republican side that can go complacent. It's not just the Republican side that can get down in the dumps. It's not just the Republican side that can get depressed. These people aren't winning anything other than the battle in the media every day, which is big, don't misunderstand. But that's not transferring to victories. Now, they can try to tell themselves that Ohio 12 with a 1% loss is a moral victory. And they can try to tell themselves that the Republicans have a much larger percentage of voters in the district. And they can tell themselves the Republicans spent all this more money. But at the end of the day, they lost. They didn't pick up the seat. They're not going to be going into the November election holding the seat with their guy O'Connor running as the incumbent. They didn't win any of these where Trump had personally endorsed somebody. And moral victories do not give you votes because you don't pick up a seat in a moral victory. Now, we are to believe that after each of these defeats, they get even angrier. And they get even more motivated. And they get even more energized. Well, tell me, how much more energized can they get than 90% turnout? Well, they can certainly spend a lot more money. Yeah, they might be raising a little bit more money at this stage, too. But I think I use the phrase dirty little secret, and I perhaps overuse it. But I don't think I don't think they're going to be able to ramp up even more motivation or resistance energy or whatever beyond what was there for yesterday. They had everything. And they've done this. How many times have they loaded up and put everything they had into it and not won anything? It's been the history since Trump was elected. And we go through this every election. The media tells us this is the one. This is the election where we're going to learn that Trump fatigue is set in, that Trump regret has set in, whatever. And it hasn't happened yet. By the time we get to November, you're going to have an entirely different makeup of the Republican base in every one of these districts. A special election in August. It doesn't make sense that the incumbents would be as wired and as motivated and as eager as the people more frustrated than anything in life over the fact that they keep losing. To me, it makes total sense that Democrats would be wired here. I just don't think they can build on this. Now, I know this makes me a lone voice because the woe is us chorus is out there thinking that all of these bare 1% wins, this is bad news. These Republican majority districts, oh my God, we ought to be smoking these guys. The special election where they have these special candidates and they run these special campaigns and they do everything they can that they will not do when we get to a general election. In terms of agenda, in terms of campaign tactics, strategy, things that they say they believe in. I'm thinking that this is the apex of this so-called energy and motivation. Now, don't misunderstand. I'm not by any stretch trying to say that this is smooth sailing. I just don't feel it yet. I don't feel like joining the woe is us chorus. If I did, I'd tell you. If my outlook were dire here, I would tell you. It isn't yet. But if it ever happens between now and the November elections, I'll be certain to not hide that from you and share it with you. Anyway, here's a review of some of the things that happened. Trump-backed candidate wins Michigan GOP primary. John James, African-American military veteran, won the endorsement of Trump, secured the GOP Senate nomination in Michigan yesterday, and he's now set up to challenge the incumbent Debbie Stabenow. 29% the precinct's reporting at the time this was written. The AP had declared James the winner over 61-year-old financier Sandy Penzler. John James had 57% of the vote. The race between James and Penzler had been in a dead heat in the weeks before the primary. A poll conducted late last month for the Detroit Free Press. Late last month? Late last month is 4 days ago, 5 days ago, a week ago. Make it sound like a month ago. Late last month is less than a week ago. The Detroit Free Press said it was a toss-up and the guy ends up winning with 57% of the vote. What happened? Well, what they'll tell you, Trump went in there. Well, Trump didn't go in there, but Trump personally endorsed John James and had to make a huge difference. And it overcame a huge spending deficit. I'm pretty sure that just about every Trump-endorsed candidate won, including in Missouri, Michigan, and Ohio. Socialist star Ocasio-Cortez strikes out. All of her endorsed candidates lost yesterday, including the number one candidate, the drive-by, the CNN. I watch CNN. It's on here every day. CNN was loaded for bear yesterday for the Democrat candidate for governor of Michigan, Abdul El-Sayed. That was the candidate that Ocasio-Cortez endorsed, and CNN was convinced the guy was going to win. There were features. There were puff pieces. There were profiles already being what the guy got 35% of the vote. And you could make book on it. The Russians are already being blamed for the Republicans winning Ohio 12. And from none other than an actress. Alyssa Milano blamed Russia for the Republican win in Ohio. She tweeted, "You know what sucks? Because of our unwillingness to pass policy that protects our election integrity, I immediately think the Green Party votes tonight are Russian meddling." There was a wacko Green Party candidate got 1,000 votes. And many of the Democrats think that the Green Party candidate was a Russian stealth candidate. That the Russians put the Green Party candidate in there to steal votes away from the Democrat. So they're running around telling themselves, and this is what the Democrat Party and the media have done. You could have made book on this. Every election they lose, the Russians are going to have tampered. Now, I want to move on from all of this. Audio soundbite time. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I was going to do this even before she got blown out. Every candidate she endorsed wiped out yesterday. She appeared recently on a podcast called Pod Save America. The co-host is a man named John Lovett. And he asked Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez about how she's going to pay for her agenda. And every time this question comes up, it becomes abundantly clear this woman is clueless. She's literally clueless. She's got an economics degree from Boston University, but she is clueless. That matters because to many in the Democrat Party, she is the future. She is the face. She is the star. She has the answers. She's already supporting Medicare for all, $32 trillion over 10 years. Folks, I don't think people realize what it would cost to pay for her agenda, but I'm going to run through it here. But here is the soundbite. Question. We don't talk about what defense costs. We're about to hit $1 trillion in debt because of the corporate tax. Now, listen to the question. We're going to hit $1 trillion in debt because of corporate tax cuts. Yet when we talk about pre-K, healthcare, college, suddenly it's unrealistic to spend money on that because it's so expensive. And it's not just bad faith Republicans who make that argument. I mean, you even hear it from Democrats as well. What is your response to people who do not care about the corporate tax cuts and the money that costs, and then being unwilling to spend on social programs?
They say, how are you going to pay for it? As though they haven't used these same ways to pay for unlimited wars, to pay for $1 trillion tax cuts and tax cut extensions. They use these mechanisms to pay for these things all the time. They only want to know, it just seems like their pockets are only empty when we're talking about education and investing in human capital in the United States, education, healthcare, housing, and investing in the middle class. All of a sudden, there's nothing left. All of a sudden, the wealthiest nation in the world we're just totally scarce. And we have complete scarcity when it comes to the things that are most important.
Now, what is asinine about this? No, she doesn't even try to answer the question, how's she going to pay for it? She just complains about the fact that money isn't being spent on it when it already is. Over 60% of the federal budget is already spent on things this woman claims we're not spending anything on. The vast majority of our budget is not defense. Anyway, not to mention that we are $20 trillion in debt and don't have any money, really, except for the money we can print. But she wasn't there. Here's the continuation, a remainder of her answer.
I think that, but I also think a lot of these folks, especially those, I think perhaps on the Democratic side, perhaps they don't even see it. I don't know. I don't know if that's a generous interpretation or not, but I legitimately think that they start kind of buying into conservative talking points. They get dragged into their court all the time. And I think it is because there's this really myopic and also just misunderstanding of politics as this flat, two-dimensional left-right thing. And so they always feel like, okay, the right says this thing, we have to respond to it. And that's why they're winning.
Remember what the question was. How are you going to pay for your agenda? And now she's trying to deny that she is part of a left-right arrangement when she's espousing socialism. Okay, let's go through the numbers here very quickly because the time is dwindling. We're already, with her agenda, $32 trillion over 10 years just for Medicare for all. Now she wants free tuition. She wants free this, free food stamp, free everything. The numbers that have been run on her proposals equal $42 trillion over 10 years above what we're already spending. Now let's talk about how to raise that. What do you think we would have to do? She's totally, I'll tell you one thing. You would have to confiscate every dollar of corporate profits over $90,000. You would have to not tax it at 25 or 30. You'd have to confiscate it. You would have to compensate. You would need to create a 77% federal tax rate in order to raise money. 77% above $90,000 of income. Everything over $90,000 gets taxed at 77%. It's confiscated. The thing about, and you're way short of what you need. It isn't possible, folks. It simply isn't possible to tax people and businesses and the country enough to get the kind of money to pay for this. But once you confiscate all profits over $90,000, who's going to keep working? You can only do it one time. And you still don't come up with anywhere near what you need. She's clueless. She doesn't understand it, and neither do the people voting for her. I got to take a break because of time. Back here in just a second. Don't go away. Okay, the numbers have been run. This is what you would have to do. This is what you'd have to pay for the socialism of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for just 1 year. We're talking about raising $34 trillion here. If all you wanted to do was tax corporations and people, you'd have to raise $34 trillion by seizing all profits and all family wage income above $90,000. Seize it, not tax it. You would have to confiscate, and you still wouldn't have enough. You seize. You allow every corporation to keep $90,000 of profit, and you allow every family to keep $90,000, and you take everything else. How many times could you do that? Corporations are not going to continue to stay in business if they only keep $90,000 in profit. Same thing with families. Why work if everything is going to be taken from you? If you wanted to raise it with a VAT tax like they have in Europe, you know what the VAT tax would be? It's a national sales tax. 87%. Take the existing American tax base and tax everything they buy, everything they spend money on, from the smallest to the largest, every phase of a purchase. 87% of it, 87% of a stick of gum, 87% of a new lawnmower, 87%, whatever, that's the sales tax. Who's going to buy anything? Payroll tax. Okay, let's just do it. Let's raise payroll tax. That's how we'll pay for the new socialist agenda. How about a 37% payroll tax on top of your income tax rate and your Medicare tax rate and every other tax that you pay? Who's going to keep working after this kind of confiscation takes place? 1 year is all you can do this. Rudy Giuliani has just told a drive-by media that the Trump campaign, the Trump administration has responded to Robert Mueller's office and the request Mueller has to have Trump sit down for an interview with the special counsel. We don't know what the response was, at least I haven't seen it, but Rudy has signaled that they have responded. And eventually we'll find out what was in the response. The drive-bys, folks, they're beside themselves. They still think, and do not doubt me on this, they still think Mueller has some secret that hasn't leaked that's going to lead to Donald Trump being thrown out of office. They still believe it. It's not a matter of hope. It's not a matter of wishful thinking. They believe it. They think Mueller's got it. They're looking at the Manafort trial, and they're seeing all kinds of signs that Mueller's got the smoking gun. This Manafort trial, we need to go through this just for the entertainment value of it. Well, that's why I'm here. You haven't been keeping up with it, but I have been. I've been keeping up with more than I can possibly squeeze into this program today. Well, he stole from Manafort. He stole from Manafort to have a mistress. He stole from Manafort to have a flat in London. Is it Manafort did know this and didn't know that? Look, here's the bottom line. Let me give you the bottom line. It appears, and this is important, it appears, despite all of the fog, that the Mueller team does have enough to get a conviction on Manafort without whatever Gates is saying. Now, wait. What Gates is adding to this, we don't know the value because we don't know how the jury is going to interpret the guy. Because the guy is being forced to admit that he's lied for so much of his life, but that he's telling the truth now. And, of course, he's telling the truth now because the prosecutors, why, they gave him a deal. They've given him immunity. So, of course, he's telling the truth. Now, he can't lie because if that's discovered, the immunity is withdrawn. There are other people studying this trial who believe that Gates is so all over the place with things that he has admitted lying about, now saying he's telling the truth. No, I didn't lie about that. No, I did lie about, but I didn't lie about that. No, I was telling the truth then about. But some legal beagles And this is, again, because of the experience we have with some of Mueller's prosecutors being on the Enron and Ted Stevens prosecution teams where they suborned perjury. DOJ lawyers suborned perjury of their star witness in the Ted Stevens trial, which was reversed and thrown out because of it. The Stevens conviction, which cost him his seat in the Senate, was thrown out because an investigation ordered by a judge discovered that they had suborned perjury of the star witness. Some people think that the prosecutors here are making Gates lie. This is incredible, what is being alleged. And it's being alleged because some of the same prosecutors are on Mueller's team that did it in the Stevens case and the Enron task force. So we'll just have to wait and see. But the point about Mueller having enough on Manafort without needing Gates, the reason that's important is if he's got enough to send Manafort away for essentially the rest of his life, and Manafort still isn't flipping, then one of two things is true. Either Manafort, who only worked for Trump less than 3 months, is the most loyal, the most devoted person in the world. Either Paul Manafort so loves and appreciates Trump that he's willing to go to jail for the rest of his life to protect him, or he doesn't have anything to flip with. And if you ask me, it's the latter. If Mueller's got Manafort dead to rights, and dead to rights means jail for the rest of your life, but that you can get out of it by telling Mueller what you know about Trump colluding with Russia or whatever Trump might have done that's criminal. Why wouldn't you do it? How could he possibly be so loyal to somebody he didn't even know very much and only worked for less than 3 months? Would you go to jail for the rest of your life for somebody? What if they promised to provide for your family the rest of your life? I can't imagine it. Would any of you in this audience go to jail for the rest of your life, even in your mid-60s, in an act of loyalty to somebody, even who someone is president? I think what it means is that Manafort doesn't have anything on Trump. Manafort wasn't there long enough. Manafort, none of this stuff that he's been accused of doing happened at any time he worked for Trump or was in Trump's campaign service. This is, I mean, you don't know what people have. I mean, we don't, but it seems to me the logical conclusion here is that Manafort hasn't flipped because he doesn't have anything to flip with. We shall see. Back to the phones. Mark in Cincinnati. Welcome, sir. Glad that you called. How are you?
Fine. How are you, Rush?
Good. Thank you.
I just wanted to make a statement about the horse race, so to speak, that happened in District 12 in Ohio last night. The only reason why it was a horse race to start with is because of John Kasich, the governor. That was his old seat, as most people know, and he is such an anti-Trumper that he would rather see a Democrat have that seat than have somebody have that seat that would support Trump.
Okay, I understand that, but what's he been doing?
He's been hitting all of the talk shows in Ohio. He's been working behind the scenes and campaigning for the Democrat.
Behind the scenes?
With all of his anti-Trump rhetoric that he continues to put in op-eds in the local papers, and anybody that will listen, he has spent all of his time bashing Trump.
Okay, let me be specific with you about some questions. Is Governor Kasich, in these talk shows you say he's appearing on, these op-eds that he's writing, or these little random interviews he does, has he actually endorsed, quasi-endorsed, urged people to vote for O'Connor?
He hasn't come out and actually endorsed him or actually told anybody to vote for him, but it's just the way his gestures are and the things that he's done in the background with people that I know that live in that district, because I travel the state, that it gives the impression that he wanted them to vote Democrat rather than getting out there and actually supporting the Republican.
So what you're saying essentially is that if the Democrat vote turnout was inordinately high at 90%, that Kasich may be one of the reasons why, because he was bashing Trump all the time, which is what Democrats like and want to hear. And now, he didn't ever publicly say that you heard he didn't want Balderson to win the seat, did he? He never said, no. I don't want the Republicans to hold this. He never said anything like that. You're just saying that he was so obviously anti-Trump all the time that it ended up helping O'Connor.
Yes.
That's what
exactly.
Yeah, okay. And again, just want to be very, very clear here. That's an assessment made by a person in Ohio after observing things. I wanted to make it clear Kasich didn't say any of that ever that anybody heard. And Kasich, we're not saying it. Kasich went on TV, said, vote Democrat. Kasich didn't go on TV and say, I think the Democrats need to win that seat because blah, blah. He didn't say that. He just continued to bash Trump and therefore sent messages to Democrats in that district that it would be okay to vote against Trump. And the way you vote against Trump is to vote against the Republican running for the seat. That's, well, you know, I always tell you, I get a kick out of finding out how people think. And that's an interesting perspective. Squeeze one more in here. Derek in Drum, Pennsylvania. Your turn. You're next. Hello, sir.
Hey, Rush. Thanks for having me. So I couldn't pass up the opportunity to have a little compare and contrast between Trump and Obama. So Trump, he dragged Troy Balderson across the finish line in the 12th. This is something that Obama was never willing to do in 2010. You mentioned 2010 earlier in the elections. He just never had any desire nor the ability.
Well, wait a minute. That's right. That's right. But let me tell you why. This is a great, great point. Do not doubt me. Obama did not campaign for people running for the House of Representatives because he thought it was beneath the presidency to get involved in such small elections. So what Obama did was run around and make fundraising appearances where he was extolling the virtues of the party at large. But he didn't go into individual districts and do what Trump is doing. Trump is actually going in and actually endorsing, helping to raise money for single candidates in single districts. Obama never did it. Now, there's I think another reason. Obama was never confident that he had coattails. And there's a reason for that. He didn't. Pretty much everybody Obama endorsed, vast majority of them did lose. It was kind of a fascinating thing to realize, and including the biggest was Hillary Clinton. He's out there endorsing and stumping for Hillary. He rarely did that. He did in his second term. He would go out and stump for a Senate candidate now and then, or he would very rarely go into a state or district and stump, but he would announce support for, some cases endorse. But he would not do it in House races. And in fact, get this, some of the establishment types inside the Beltway think that that's presidential and it's another strike against Trump. That Trump is just, he's lessening the aura. He is dimming the brightness of the presidency by reducing it to stump politics in local districts. Obama never did that, they're saying. But I get your point. Here's Obama, who never did it, versus Trump, who's trying to. And when you look at the enthusiasm, doesn't it make any sense? Does it make sense? There ought to be Republican enthusiasm following a Trump appearance someplace. Absolutely right. Back in a sec. So I got an email during the break. Rush, what do you mean when you get hoarse that it is a distraction? Well, it becomes a distraction because I become focused on, am I able to say what I want to say rather than just saying it? And when I become, look, folks, my mouth can't keep up with my brain anyway. And when I'm hoarse, why, it becomes even harder to keep up with my brain. And when my mouth can't keep up with my brain, then I can end up sometimes sounding like indecisive, don't know what I'm saying. It's just a distraction, that's all. And so that's why I mention it at the top of the program, because I don't want anybody to think I'm not feeling well or my brain isn't functioning. It is. I just can't keep up with it with my mouth today when my voice is hoarse. Now, I went and looked some things up here. Obama's endorsement, in fact, the first 7 candidates that Obama endorsed as a new president after he was elected in 2009, they all lost, and by wide margins. John Corzine, Craig Deeds, Martha Coakley, even Arlen Specter, who had changed parties. Obama endorsed all these people who went down in flames. Oh, by the way, we now know what the response from the Trump legal team was. Trump's lawyers have rejected Mueller's latest terms for an interview in the Russia investigation and are seeking a narrower scope. Excuse me. I hope nobody's surprised by this. Did anybody really think Trump is going to agree? This is all part of a plan here to appear to be cooperative and make it look like Mueller is the obstacle, because they're running they're running a political campaign against Mueller, because that's what this is. There's nothing legal about this. Trump's not going to be indicted. He's not going to be impeached. This is a political process launched by the deep state to get rid of Donald Trump, and it is proceeding full speed ahead. It hasn't slowed down. It hasn't changed directions. It hasn't lost any momentum. The effort here is to get rid of Donald Trump somehow, some way. And so Trump and his team have joined this as a political fight, and that's why they're out there doing what they can to discredit Mueller and his team, because it is precisely a political fight. Joe in Columbus, it's great to have you. I'm glad you waited, sir. Hi.
Thank you, Rush. I live in Westerville, which is a suburb of Columbus, the same town that Governor Kasich lives in. And I would like to preface this by saying I don't like John Kasich, but he did have TV and radio ads where he endorsed Balderson, told people that he had worked with Balderson before, and then urged people to get out and vote for Troy Balderson. So I don't know what the previous caller from, that said travel through Ohio was talking about.
Well, this is one of the dangers. Anybody can call here and say anything.
Right.
Which is why I asked him to specifically. He did not say that Kasich endorsed the Democrat. So
But he did actively endorse the Republican. I do know that. So.
Well, I'm just glad that you were able to get through here. And
I did vote for Balderson yesterday. I held my breath, but I did it.
Whoa, what do you mean you held your nose? What does that mean?
Well, because I had voted for Pat Tiberi, which was the person who retired. I'd voted a bunch of times, and I was ticked off when the House, and he was one of them, I looked it up, who voted not to repeal Obamacare, even though before Trump was president, he was one of the guys who said, yeah, we got to repeal Obamacare. But then when given the chance, he didn't. And I had told myself I wasn't going to vote for Pat Tiberi again come the November elections. Well, then he decided that he was going to retire. So that's why I voted for the person.
Right, because there's too many people like you that weren't going to vote for him after that.
Right, because, I'm...
But wait a minute. When you say you hold your breath, it makes it sound like you're not particularly crazy about Balderson either.
Well, I'm not particularly crazy about politicians.
Well, I mean, but you don't have much choice here.
Exactly.
Whoever you're going to vote for is one. Look, I hear you. I hear you on that. Anyway, I'm glad you got through there, Joe. Thanks much. We got to go for a brief moment, but we are coming right back as always. There we go. Once again, the fastest 3 hours in media. Look. 2 of them already in the can. We got 1 left here, and I'm going through the soundbite roster. I've got those 4 that I requested held over from yesterday, which I've got to do. And we'll go through some of these. So the drive-bys reacting to Ohio 12 and the other elections that took place yesterday, when you will hear that all of these Democrat defeats guarantee a Democrat blue wave in November. It's new math or something. Now, look at this AP headline. primary night takeaways. Democrat optimism, women advance. I'm looking at Snerdley. He said, you better believe it. He's nodding. You better believe it. There's reasons for the Democrats to be optimistic. Damn straight. Okay. All right. Democrats did not walk away with a clear win Tuesday night, but they didn't have to. No. The Democrats never have to win. The Democrats just have to show well enough where the media can say that it's the same thing as winning. They essentially battled Republicans to a draw in a central Ohio. What do you mean, a draw? Look, I know what they're trying to say here, but there are no draws. There is a winner and loser, and there's going to be eventually a winner and loser. Here's where we are with Ohio 12. There's no recount yet. There are 8,000 ballots that haven't been counted. There are provisional ballots and there are absentees. So the numbers are that of the 8,000 outstanding, that the Democrats are going to have to win 60% of them to get to win the 1/2 point margin here where an automatic recount is triggered. Do you think the Democrats are going to get 60% of them? Some people do because, yes, it was early voting, the absentees and the provisionals, and that's Democrats. The Democrats are the only ones that ever vote early because they care, and they're motivated, and they're inspired, and they are really, really fired up. And the Republicans don't care about anything. And so, yeah. Well, can they cheat? Can they cheat? I don't know. Did he use the Russians in the recount or not? Anyway, that's the AP's takeaway on this. From the Hill.com, midterms pose dilemma for Mueller. Special counsel Robert Mueller has a midterms problem. With the elections less than 3 months away, Mueller is running out of time to issue more Oh, I see. Mueller's running out of time to tell us what he's got that's going to force Trump out of office. That's what this means. With the elections less than 3 months away, Mueller is running out of time to issue more indictments or to announce other major developments in his probe without opening himself up to accusations of attempting to influence elections. Of course, Mueller wouldn't be. No way. Yes, Mueller has to be very careful that what he does doesn't look like he's attempting to influence the elections. You know? They really think we're stupid. They must just think that we're a bunch of blithering idiots here. But the real key here is that Mueller's only got 3 months to show us what he's got. We've waited patiently. We know. Folks, I know I'm sometimes funny, but I'm not trying to be funny here. I'm telling you the media seriously is all in on the Russians colluding. They have been so immersed in this for so long that they now literally believe it. And they think Mueller is going to produce whatever it is they think he's got that's going to force Trump out of office. That's why they're hanging on everything to do with this investigation. So Mueller has a midterms problem. Elections are less than 3 months away, and he's running out of time to either issue more indictments or announce other major developments without opening himself up to allegations of attempting to influence Election Day. It's a challenge that has befallen previous federal prosecutors and law enforcement officials to the point that they now typically refrain from taking any prominent action that could have political ramifications within. Has anybody ever heard the name James Comey? What in the world are they talking about here? Anybody ever heard of Andrew McCabe, Peter Strzok Smirk, Lisa Page, Bruce Orr, Shelley Orr, Susan Orr, Freddie Orr, Christopher Steele, the whole list of them? Has anybody? They're running out of time. so that they won't be seen as trying to affect the outcome of an election? What about proclaiming Hillary Clinton innocent before they even interviewed her? What about Comey assuming the powers of Loretta Lynch because she screwed up and met with Slick Willie on the tarmac in Phoenix? What about a FISA warrant based on a bogus dossier to start an investigation into the Republican presidential nominee? And the Hill wants us to believe that law enforcement is very, very careful. Very careful. In fact, they dial down their daily activities so as not to be seen influencing the outcome of an election. Yeah, and then when that election goes opposite the way they intended, then they get in gear to try to reverse it, which is what we've had to put up with for the last year and a half. See, I think this is bogus. I think Mueller has things timed perfectly. If everything goes as planned, as we get close to the actual midterm elections, Mueller is going to have a conviction of Manafort. There's going to be another Manafort trial starting in the District of Columbia in September. That's still out there on the horizon. And then Mueller will be able to leak elements of his upcoming report to the media so as to shape the election as much as possible. That's what's going to happen. Does anybody have any doubt about this? You get your Manafort conviction, hopefully. I mean, that's what they're hoping on. You got another Manafort trial where whatever dirt is made public will be widely known. And everybody knows Mueller has to write a report. The report goes to Rosenstein, who then determines who else sees it. It goes up to Congress. There's no requirement that the report be released. There's no law. Now, of course, even if this one ultimately isn't, although it will be, it's going to be leaked like crazy. And if anybody thinks that, I mean, Mueller's probably already started writing it. This investigation has gone on a year and a half. Certain elements of it are wrapped up. And I'm sure that the writing staff on Mueller's team is already working on drafts of the report, certainly those areas where they've wrapped up. And it wouldn't take much to leak. And if the report is going to say that Donald Trump was dangerously irresponsible, that Donald Trump and his son engaged in activity which could be seen by some as to have been colluding, he doesn't have to allege anything. Just criticize Trump for his lackadaisical behavior, to his inattention to detail, though it wouldn't take much to cast doubt and appall over Trump. And anybody thinks that's not going to happen needs to go back to sleep and get back out of bed the right way, because that is almost guaranteed axiomatic. And my thought is the timing for Mueller is working out perfectly. And you'll notice this piece here at thehill.com is to set Mueller up as the king of virtue and integrity. Robert Mueller wouldn't do anything to affect the outcome of an election. He wouldn't do anything that would reflect poorly on the Department of Justice. Blah, blah, blah. And then, if there are leaks that give away some of the report that are critical of Trump, that is critical of Trump, the drive-by is not going to worry about where the leak came from, so Mueller's not going to get ripped for it. You think this is wrong, Mr. Snerdley? I'd say you people, you better be loaded for bear, because I'd say they guarantee this is going to happen. You're going to have whatever happens in this Manafort trial in the next one, and in leaking the report, all that can easily happen in the next 90 days. And for good measure, Comey ought to come back out and exonerate Hillary again. You know, maybe sometime around October 25th. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Comey's under investigation. I tell you who I wish was under investigation, Dianne Feinstein. You know, this Webb, she has had a relationship with the Chi-Com government, and her husband has. She's had spies and moles from the Chi-Com government on her staff driving her around, and nobody seems interested in this. And this is again, there's no evidence of any collusion whatsoever. There's no evidence the Russians had any spies on the Trump campaign. There is evidence galore that all of that and more was happening throughout the Democrat Party and the Democrat National Committee. Hillary Clinton, Dianne Feinstein, who knows who else? And it's all being ignored. There's no investigation into this. And I'm going to tell you, this is the great missing piece. Is where the hell is the DOJ investigation of Hillary Clinton and the DNC? Where is it? And I still maintain, as many people are, that Trump could blow all of this up by declassifying everything Devin Nunes and the boys over at the House Intelligence Committee want to see, that Rosenstein and the others are hiding and refusing to release about the origins of this investigation and what really went on with the FISA application to get the warrant to spy. Carter Page and what actually was going on with all of that. Trump could make that public this afternoon if he wanted to. And I'm curious to know if he's at some point going to strategically decide to do it. Speaking of, you remember Adam Schiff? We had audio of this. I should have told Cookie, don't go get it now. I don't have time to get it in there. I'm running way behind as it is. But in the midst of doing show prep today, I remembered Adam Schiff. You know, we're talking about the Don Trump Jr. meeting with the Russians at Trump Tower. Adam Schiff had a meeting with Russians. That was videotaped and audio taped. He had a prank played by a Russian comedian. Remember? A Russian comedian called Adam Schiff claiming he had nude photos of Trump from that hotel room. And you should have heard Adam Schiff on that call. He was taking it calling it compromat, which is the Soviet, the communist, the Russian word for compromising information. Schiff began the call by thanking the chairman. He was told that he was talking to the chairman of, it was a Ukrainian politician. And he was talking to the chairman of some high-ranking Russian organization. He began by thanking the chairman for his time and warning him that Russian spies were probably listening to the call. So he said, I would caution our Russian friends maybe listening to the conversation. I wouldn't share anything over the phone with me here that you wouldn't want them to hear. And the prankster said, I don't think that'll impact on our investigation. And the fake Russian expert claimed that the Ukrainian government had obtained recordings and documents that proved Putin was blackmailing Trump. He had naked photos taken during the affair between Trump and a Russian prostitute urinating on the bed or whatever it was, plus a famous Russian model. He also claimed the Ukrainians recorded secret meetings between a Trump campaign aide and a famous Russian singer turned spy that took place at a non-existent mafia hangout in Brooklyn. Adam Schiff got totally punked by a Russian comedian. He believed every bit of it. And the audio of it aired, so forth. He was willing to talk to the Russians. My point about he was willing to talk to them. He thought he was. He thought he was talking to Russians, and he thought he was getting dirt on Donald Trump. And Trump didn't even do that. But they all want you to think that he did. Do you know how many, latest numbers here from the Department of Homeland Security, do you know how many overstays there are in this country, the number of illegal immigrants who have overstayed their visas? The Department of Homeland Security announced it. It's about 700,000. Still 700,000 illegal aliens in the country who are here on expired visas. Above and beyond whatever the number everybody uses, 15 million, 12 million, the number of illegals in in the country. It's just another bit of evidence of how lax over the years the enforcement of immigration enforcement law has been. Let me take a brief time out, and we will resume right after this, folks. Don't go anywhere. By the way, that 700,000 overstays is just 1 year, folks. The number is in the millions of illegal aliens who've overstayed their visas. That's just 1 year. That was announced by Kirstjen Nielsen, who is the director of Homeland Security. Rudy Giuliani earlier today was in the media and had this to say about the Trump team's rejection of the request by Mueller on the scope of an interview.
We do not want to run into the November elections. So you back up from that. This should be over with by September 1st. We have now given him an answer. Obviously, he should take a few days to consider it. But we should get this resolved. If there's going to be an interview, let's have it. If there's not going to be an interview, then let him write his report.
It's up to you whether there's going to be an interview or not. What do you mean? If there's going to be an interview, let's have it. If not, then let's write the report. We want it over by September 1st. They're putting pressure on Mueller here. Mueller wants to talk to Trump because he wants to set a perjury trap. And people say, no, Rush, that can't be because Mueller's smart enough to know that Trump knows that's what's going to happen. Trump wouldn't fall for it, and Mueller knows it. No, folks, no. There's no prosecutor alive, particularly of Mueller's stature, doesn't think he can get anybody in a perjury trap. It actually isn't that hard. Talk to anybody who knows. You ask Trump a series of questions about X. Get his answers. Could be all truthful. Then you go talk to somebody else about the same things. If there's any variance in the answers, you accuse one of them of lying. In this case, they would accuse Trump. That's how you do it. All you need is a variance, and you can charge lying to investigators, and damn well, you're off to the races on a process crime. That's why I can't believe they're going to do this anyway. But they're making it look like they're interested in it because they're trying to make it look like they're trying to be cooperative. So they set forth the terms, or Mueller sets forth the terms. They reject. They counter. Mueller rejects. Rudy says, look, let's either do it or not do it. We got to finish this by September 1st because of the midterms coming in November. So just write your report. Remember, you got to judge all this now politically, not legally. Even though everybody's lawyers here, the special counsel, it's an entirely political procedure. Here's Scott, Jacksonville, Florida. Great to have you, sir. How are you?
Happy birthday to me, Mega Dittos from your number one listener, Jacksonville, Florida.
Thank you. It's great to have you, sir.
You know, Rush, I've been with you since your Rush to Excellence tour in Orlando. It's been a long ride, and I've been loving it.
I remember that.
Yeah, so do I. I remember that joke that you told, and I won't say it, the person who got the job at the end. Anyway, if the Russians are so good at swaying the results of an election, why such a nail-biter in Ohio 12? I mean, is Cambridge Analytica that detailed to say, hey, we better not blow this out?
Yeah, I think the Russians probably wanted to disguise their activity. If there had been a blowout, that might have been a little suspicious. And the Democrats don't want anybody thinking the Russians helped them. And so the Green Party candidate in there with about 1,000 or 1,200 votes happens to be close to the margin of difference here. And so the Democrats are running around thinking that the Green Party candidate is the Russians. I don't think the Russians want to blow out yet here. Remember, the Russians want to disguise and camouflage their meddling here. They would rather not have it be confirmed as something obviously happening. They want it to remain dubious and mysterious. I appreciate the call. Let's hit the sound bites here as promised. We're going to start here with number 8. We have and I just want you to hear this in the drive-bys. We have a montage of many drive-bys talking about how Ohio 12 was a moral victory for the Democrats. And the fact that it was close is the only thing that matters.
The fact that it's close is so interesting.
Just the fact that we're having this discussion.
The fact that it is this close. Republicans have to deal with basically a tie, very close to a tie, a slight win.
The fact that we're even talking about this, I do think is overall a win for Democrats.
This is a moral victory for the Democrats. The fact that they're this close is a moral victory for the Democrats.
This was a moral victory for Democrats.
That was Don Lemon there, the dumbest man on TV. That's the last voice that you heard. Now, how many of them said the fact that we're discussing this? Dana Bash, just the fact that we're discussing. You mean you wouldn't be discussing it if Balderson had won by 2 or 3 or 5 points? What are they talking about? The fact that we're discussing this means that it's a Democrat win. The fact that we're discussing this means that it's a Democrat moral victory. The fact that we're discussing this, the fact that it was so close, means it's a moral victory for the Democrats. And this is Gloria Borger, also at CNN last night with Don Lemon. Question, the president is calling it for Troy Balderson. We're not calling it now. This is CNN. So we're not calling this race yet. Trump did, but we're not. It's too close to call. A lot of things that could go into this. It looks likely that Balderson's going to win. What's up here, Gloria?
Of course, Donald Trump is taking credit, but I want to say who else should take credit for this victory, if it is a victory, and that's John Kasich. Because John Kasich's the guy, if Balderson wins, who brought out those suburban women who don't like Donald Trump in Delaware County and those moderate Republicans.
Well, now there's some news. Did you know that women in Delaware County don't like Trump? Well, because he talked to him. Remember, we had a soundbite from Kasich. Yes, he talked to 2 women. Don't you remember? You might not have, because you're screening calls. We had a soundbite from Kasich yesterday where he said that he was talking to women. And so Gloria Borger says that John Kasich brought out the suburban women in Delaware County who do not like Trump, and Kasich brought out those moderate Republicans who don't like Trump. Here's F. Chuck Todd on the Today Show today, predicting what it all means.
Democrats, I think, are now heavy favorites to take control of the House. I think the question is really the size. Is it 30 seats, 40 seats, 50 seats? They have a night like this, like they did in Ohio, they could win 40 to 60 seats. The Republican governor, John Kasich, thinks the president actually did more to turn out suburban voters against the Republican candidate. Here you brought the president in for the sole reason to stir up his base, and the anti-Trump vote turned out at a higher rate than the pro-Trump vote. That is a harbinger for November. Watch out.
Well, now this is another interesting take. So Trump rolls into town and actually inspired the anti-Trump vote. F. Chuck Todd. Now we're talking 60 seats, folks. I mean, the Republicans won 63. I think that's the number in 2010. And nobody saw that coming, by the way. Nobody. You know, the Tea Party, they were poo-pooing it. Doesn't matter. It's fake. It's fraud. Nobody saw that because the Republicans didn't see it coming. They thought Obama was popular, Obamacare and all this. But they didn't see it. Now they're predicting the Democrats going to win by 60 seats. Here you bring the president in for the sole reason to stir up his base, and he instead stirs up the anti-Trump vote that turned out at a higher rate than the pro-Trump vote. And Kasich thinks that, according to F. Chuck. Kasich thinks the president did more to turn out suburban voters against Balderson. Here's Balderson himself last night in Newark, Ohio.
I'd like to thank President Trump. Mr. President, coming to town, I'd also like to take the time to thank Vice President Pence. Tonight, I'm going to promise to you that I'm going to work relentlessly for this 12th congressional district. America is on the right path, and we're going to keep it going that way. It's time to get to work. Over the next 3 months, I'm going to do everything I can to keep America great again.
Well, you better have fun these next 3 months because after that, you're toast. F. Chuck Todd says you and 59 others are hidden to the highway out of town. Mr. Snerdley, let me ask you a question. For those of you that know, Snerdley is very alarmed over the fact that these races the Republicans won were very close in places he doesn't think they need it. Do you think the Democrats are going to win 60 seats? Do you think the Democrats are going to win 20? They need to win 23 to take control. Do you think that there's going to be a blue wave, 23, 25 seats? Heath, he thinks it's possible. Okay, so we have one traitor here on the staff. It's good to identify him. Here's just kidding, of course. Just kidding. Danny O'Connor, the Democrat, on CNN, talking about last night.
Some people who look back and say, well, you have said you will not support Nancy Pelosi. What does it tell you that support for Nancy Pelosi is so toxic among some, not all, but some voters?
Well, it tells me the folks are ready for a new generation of leadership. I'm running to be an independent voice in Washington. I think a difference between me and my opponent is he's going to do whatever Washington, D.C. tells him to do. I'm someone who's going to be an independent voice.
I have no doubt that Dan O'Connor thinks that. Dan, you need to go talk to Luis Gutierrez and find out how it works. Luis Gutierrez from Chicago. I think he did a 60-minute interview. He was scheduled to appear in a Limbaugh letter and canceled. He was going to interview with me, and he canceled it because he went on 60 Minutes and told the truth. Yeah, I was elected. I get it. I was going to go in and be my own man, and then they brought me into the leadership office. And they said, you like being here? Is it fun so far? Oh, yeah. You want to stay here? Yep. You're going to vote like we tell you. You're going to vote like we tell you, not your district. You want to be reelected? You'll vote the way we tell you. You want to get funds and money for your reelection? You'll vote the way we tell you. You are not your own man. You do what we tell you to do, and everything's going to be fine. If you don't, you're going to be here one term and you're gone. And the same thing will happen to Danny O'Connor. And it'll be Pelosi telling him that. Not enough time to be fair with a caller, so we're going to move everything till tomorrow. By the way, open line Friday on Thursday tomorrow because I'm going to be out on Friday. How about this? Can male cheerleaders help the NFL's image problem? It's in Vanity Fair magazine. What's happened here? The Los Angeles Rams and the New Orleans Saints have each hired a male cheerleader, gay, very attractive, very fit, it says here. And the question is, can male cheerleaders help the NFL's image problem? Now, there are NFL teams that have cheerleaders, and TV never shows them. You never see them. Not like you do at a college telecast. You never see them. Are we now going to see, are the TV networks now going to show us the male cheerleaders? And if so, is this going to solve the NFL's image problem of players taking a knee during the national anthem and whatever other image problems they have? And Vanity Fair is posing that question seriously. Can male cheerleaders solve the NFL's image problem?